Despite Scene's affair being exposed, he remains oddly content, speaking with a nonchalant air as if the car we're discussing is his by right. His surprising attitude leaves me baffled. Why is he so happy, and why does he act with such arrogance toward me? Sometimes it feels like we're living in completely different worlds. If I could just hand over this car to him, it would be a relief. The $2,000 monthly payment would be his responsibility, but I suppose he should be able to handle it. I wonder if he's really okay with that amount. Even though I don't agree with his suggestion, he smiles at me with a joy I've never seen before. My name is Holly, I'm 38, and I work in design. I thought I was managing my life well, but as I approach 40, the idea of marriage still lingers in my mind. I have neither a partner nor much experience in love. Seeing all my friends married, I sometimes felt left behind and considered giving up on the idea of marriage altogether. But seeing their happiness kept me dreaming. My life took an unexpected turn one day after work. Feeling uplifted, I decided to have a drink alone at a bar. I settled into a corner and ordered some snacks while scrolling on my phone. That's when a man approached me. "Any friends with you, miss?" he asked, peering at me with curiosity. This was my first encounter with Scene, who would later become my husband. "No, I'm here by myself," I replied. "Really? How about a drink together?" he suggested, taking a seat before I could respond. He started pouring himself a drink and, despite my protests, laughed it off, saying, "It's okay, just for a bit." Reluctantly, I agreed to this company, even though I wasn't in the mood to chat. Scene started talking away, and though I stayed silent, we eventually exchanged contact information and went our separate ways. I thought our meeting would be a one-time thing, but 2 months later, Scene and I began seeing each other more frequently. As we spent time together, I found myself increasingly drawn to him. His conversations brought me comfort, and when he said he missed me, it made me genuinely happy. Before I knew it, I was wrapped up in feelings I hadn't expected. 6 months after our first meeting, we became a couple, and 3 years later, we decided to get married. I had once thought marriage wasn't for me, so Scene's proposal felt like a dream. Looking back, it seemed like the pinnacle of my happiness. However, after we married, Scene changed completely. He seemed like a different person, making me question whether the man I dated was just an act. About a month into our marriage, Scene became distant, often coming home late. When I asked about dinner, his responses were always indifferent. "Whatever," he would say. Concerned, I asked if he was okay, but he would just brush me off, saying, "Leave me alone. It's none of your business." His behavior grew worse over time. He started coming home even later, citing overtime or drinking parties as excuses. I spent many nights alone, overwhelmed by loneliness. One evening, as I returned to an empty house after work, I received a text from Scene saying he'd be working late again. While I appreciated his message, the increase in his absences worried me. Had I done something wrong? Was he deliberately avoiding home because he was disillusioned? Scene eventually stopped coming home regularly. Our once slightly upscale apartment now felt like a lonely space. I found myself eating dinner alone and preparing meals for him, only for him to eat just a few bites before stopping. "What's wrong? Aren't you hungry?" I would ask, but his bad mood was a constant, leaving me to wonder how we ended up like this. I asked Scene about his recent change in attitude, and he responded bluntly, "To be honest, I don't find your cooking tasty at all." I was taken aback. Up until now, he'd always praised my cooking and even had seconds. On anniversaries, he preferred my homemade meals over dining out. So why this sudden shift? I apologized, saying, "Sorry, I didn't realize it was bad. I'll clean up right away." But he snapped, "Don't touch it," and continued eating, though he didn't seem to enjoy the meal, frowning the whole time. Since then, he started nitpicking about everything, from a coffee cup being out of place to a decorative picture slightly askew or a single strand of hair on the floor. I work too, so sometimes housework isn't perfect. I wonder if it's normal to be so fixated on trivial details. I've repeatedly told him that because of my job, housework might not always be flawless, but Scene won't listen. He always ends up shouting, "Just shut up and do as I say." The constant stress of dealing with his demands is building up, and I find myself questioning whether I should continue this marriage. The dissatisfaction with my imperfections and a swirl of emotions are making me consider divorce. However, the rarity of finding a partner at my age and the hassle of divorce proceedings make it hard to take action. I convinced myself that enduring is my role. Before we got married, I made a significant purchase, a luxury car from a renowned brand. It was bought on loan, as a lump sum payment was impossible. I'm not particularly obsessed with cars, but there was a specific model I'd always admired, and finally owning it made me incredibly happy. It motivated me to work hard, and I used it for commuting. Car enthusiast colleagues often chatted with me about it. Initially, Sean praised the car, saying it was a great purchase, but as his attitude changed, he began using it without asking. Even though Sean has his own car, he prefers mine, which is frustrating. Because of this, I've had to commute by train and walk for shopping. I tried to address the issue with him, saying, I really wish you'd stop using my car without asking. I need it too. Sean dismissed my concerns, responding, What's the big deal? It's fine if I use it. I replied, It's not fine with me. He retorted, I don't care about you. You're commuting by train now, so it's fine. Stop complaining. You have your own car, don't you? I prefer yours. Just let me use it without making such a fuss, Sean said, ending the conversation without listening to my concerns. The cost of train fares was quickly adding up, and walking from the station to home with a tired body was becoming increasingly difficult. My weekly shopping trips had turned into frequent errands as I struggled to carry heavy bags without the car. I'd even considered asking to use Sean's car, but he brushed off my request, saying, That's my car, you wouldn't know how to handle it. Don't joke around. I felt it was unreasonable for one person to need two cars, but I couldn't argue with him. With his personality, even the slightest deviation in the car's position or seat adjustments would likely set him off, adding another layer of hassle. If I were younger, I might have fought back more, but now, I didn't have the energy. Sean continued his pattern of staying out late. He claimed he wasn't drinking because he was driving, but sometimes I could detect an unfamiliar perfume. I began to suspect he might be cheating, especially with his increasing overtime and nights out. However, without concrete proof, and lacking the funds for a private investigator, I chose to ignore these suspicions. Sean seemed to look down on me, probably thinking I was unaware of his infidelity. In his eyes, I must have appeared foolish and compliant, someone who would tolerate anything. The marriage I had envisioned was far from the reality I faced. I had dreamed of a warm, caring home where we supported each other and spent weekends exploring new places together. I had hoped that the life I envisioned with Sean might someday become a reality, but it wasn't turning out that way. As I sighed and prepared another solitary dinner, I wondered if this was how my life would be from now on. Then something happened that drastically changed my situation. On a day when I finished work earlier than expected, I decided to head home without calling Sean. He usually wouldn't come home that night anyway. As I approached our house with a heavy heart, I noticed something strange. My car was parked in the driveway. It should have been Sean's car since he had been using mine. Curiosity got the better of me, so I approached the car and saw it slightly shaking. I should have gone inside, but instead, I moved closer and overheard Sean's voice along with a woman's voice from inside the car. I listened in, trying to make out their conversation. Sean asked, Emma, do you love me? To which the woman replied, Of course I do. Her name was Emma. The conversation I had feared hearing was unfolding right before me. Sean said, I want to divorce quickly and marry you. Emma responded, Really? I'm so happy. How have things been with your wife lately? Sean replied, We barely talk. I don't even feel like talking to her. Why did I marry such a woman? I'm always with you, so I can't have a proper conversation with my wife. Emma laughed, adding, That's true. Feeling utterly humiliated, my heart ached with unbearable pain. I didn't want to hear more, so I quietly stood up and began to head home. But as I moved, my bag made a noise and Sean, noticing me, called out, Hey, you! Why are you here? I stammered, Oh, I was just coming home early. Sean's expression darkened and Emma's irritation was palpable as she said, You were eavesdropping. That's the worst. Sean got out of the car and confronted me. You said you were working late today, right? Why are you home so early? When you say you're working late, you usually come back much later. Were you trying to deceive me? I wasn't trying to deceive you, I protested. I really was working late. Besides, you're the one who's been sneaking around while I've been honest about my work schedule. I retorted, expecting Sean to be rattled by my accusations. However, with Emma sitting beside him, he seemed to have given up any pretense. So what's the problem? He asked defiantly. There's a big problem, I said. We're legally married, and what you're doing is clear infidelity. To think you brought another woman into my car. Sean shrugged dismissively. So what? I'm using it now. This car is ours from now on. I was so taken aback that I couldn't respond. His blatant disregard and brazen attitude left me speechless. It was as if he was daring me to argue further. If he wanted the car, fine. Let him have it. I thought, if they want the car, they can take over the loan payments too. The loan is $2,000 a month. I hope he can manage that. In reality, I was paying $22,000 a month on the loan, which was a stretch but manageable with my income. It seemed absurd to keep paying for a car that Scene now claimed. I'll give you the car, I said, but you'll have to take over the loan payments. Scene's response was immediate. Why should I? You should keep paying. Can't you afford it? I deliberately provoked him, and his anger flared. Fine, I'll pay, he snapped, caught off guard by the amount I mentioned. A few days later, I transferred both the car and the loan to Scene. When he received the documents detailing the loan amount, he didn't seem surprised. Whether he truly realized the burden of the $2,000 monthly payments or simply hadn't checked was unclear, but he seemed eager to finalize the transfer and move on. With the car issue resolved, we proceeded with filing for divorce. I hired a lawyer, anticipating that Scene's infidelity would be a major factor. The lawyer took on the case with enthusiasm, and after several weeks of preparation, the day of the confrontation arrived. Scene was clearly furious, and Emma stood by his side, displaying an arrogant demeanor. I was advised multiple times that hiring a lawyer was excessive, but I knew it was necessary. As the case progressed, it became evident how Scene and Emma had met and what kind of person she was. Emma was the daughter of an executive at Scene's company and also worked there herself. Scene was aware of her background when they started their affair. Although Scene was clearly at fault for pursuing her, Emma was also complicit for engaging with a married man. I demanded a divorce, sought property division, and asked for compensation from Emma for the emotional distress she caused. Scene, seemingly desperate, offered to settle any demands I had, saying, "Property division, divorce, do whatever you want. How much is it? I'll pay if that's what you want." Emma, on the other hand, was adamant about not paying compensation. "Why should I pay? It was Scene who approached me first," she argued. "But you knew he was married when you got involved with him. I have suffered mental distress because of your actions. You can't avoid payment," I countered. Emma stubbornly refused, saying, "Absolutely not. What if this gets out to your parents or workplace?" I replied, "I could send evidence by mail if necessary." Emma dismissed my threat. "Evidence? Do whatever you like," she said, seemingly unconcerned. But I wasn't merely making empty threats. If she'd insisted she didn't care, I wouldn't hesitate to act. Since Scene and I were already finalizing the divorce, we completed the proceedings that day. Scene agreed to the property division, and we settled everything and went our separate ways. As promised, I sent the evidence to Emma's workplace. Apparently, Emma didn't believe I would actually follow through. I was later informed by my lawyer that she ended up having to pay compensation as well. After the divorce, I moved to a house closer to my company and relished the freedom from both personal turmoil and car loans. It was incredibly liberating not to worry about others' actions. Sometimes I wonder if my life would have been smoother had I not married Scene. There's a tinge of regret, but my colleagues at work often comment on how much more relaxed and content I look now. From now on, I plan to live quietly, focusing on my own well-being and financial independence. No more marriage for me. I have decided to live my life solely for myself. But about 3 months after the divorce, I was caught off guard when I suddenly received a call from Scene. Curious about the reason, I answered the phone. "Hello." "Hey, what's this all about?" Scene's voice was tense. "What's with this red envelope?" "A red envelope?" I wondered if it was some kind of demand notice. "Calm down and tell me what's wrong." Scene, clearly agitated, continued, "What's this red envelope about?" When I opened it, it was a demand for car loan payments. I was taken aback. "You've been paying $22,000 a month?" Scene replied, "I had no idea. I thought it was $2,000 a month." "Didn't you know?" I said, "When we transferred the car's ownership and took out the loan, the amount was clear." "Maybe you didn't pay attention because I was managing the payments." Scene was frustrated. "I never imagined it would be $2,000 a month. Can't you continue making the payments now?" I responded, "Even if I continued making the payments, you'd end up using the car. We're divorced now. I'm not obligated to meet your demands. You insisted the car was yours in the first place." You can't just ask for payments now. Scene pleaded. Don't be like that. We were married once. Even though we're divorced, we were in love, right? Help me out a little. I was incredulous. In love? I've struggled for your sake all this time while you've lived as you please. Now you turn to your ex-wife for help. That's convenient. If you received a payment notice, you better get the money ready and settle it yourself. Scene lamented, but I can't come up with that kind of money. I said firmly, you're the one who promised to pay off the car loan. You need to take responsibility for your own words. Scene's anger was evident over the phone, but I had nothing more to say. I ended the call and refused to answer his subsequent calls. After ignoring him for a while, it seemed he eventually gave up as no more calls came through. 6 months later, I was still enjoying a comfortable life on my own. Moving closer to my office had made commuting easier, and I had more personal time to myself. I had taken up visiting art galleries as a new hobby and was enjoying my weekends exploring new exhibitions. One day, while I was relaxing, my smartphone rang with Scene's name flashing on the screen. I hesitated but eventually answered, wondering what he wanted. His once assertive tone was replaced by a weak, faltering voice. Holly, it's me, Scene, he said. I responded coolly, what do you want? Scene's voice was barely audible as he admitted, I can't make the payments anymore. Can you help me? Surprised but curious, I asked, help you with what? Scene started revealing details he had kept hidden. After our divorce, he had lost his job. The scandal of his affair with Emma, the daughter of a company board member, had led to his forced resignation. Emma had abandoned him, and despite his efforts to find new employment, he struggled with temporary and part-time work. Eventually, he sold both his cars, moved out of his rental, and returned to his parents' home. Scene had hoped that living with his parents would stabilize his life, but then his mother fell ill and required care. With his father aging, Scene had to juggle work and caregiving responsibilities. The car loans he had left behind still loomed over him, adding to his financial woes. Please help me. How about we get back together? It would be easier for you too, Scene pleaded. Easier for me, I responded sharply. If I got back with you, I'd end up shouldering the car loan payments and all other living expenses. Everything would fall on me, and it would be even harder than before. I've said it before, you're incredibly selfish, thinking I should reconcile so you can relax while I handle all the burdens. That's not true, Scene protested. Do you really think so? Do you understand the scale of the problems you've caused? I asked. You left your job and were abandoned by your girlfriend because of your affair. It's hard to care for your parents, but your situation is a result of your own actions. Scene was left speechless. I continued, I don't understand why I married you in the first place. If I could meet my past self, I'd warn her against it. And now you expect me to agree to reconcile? I can't believe you're asking this after everything. Scene's pleas were desperate, but I remained firm. I'll make sure you keep paying the loan. Take care of yourself. You can beg all you want, but I'm not agreeing to reconcile. Don't contact me again. Wait, Holly, hey, he shouted as I hung up the phone. After that call, there were no more attempts from Scene to reach me, no emails, no texts, nothing. His urgency seemed to fade, and it felt like he was just trying to justify himself, portraying himself as the victim. 6 months had passed since our last contact, and I continued to enjoy my comfortable life alone. My new hobby of visiting art museums had become a cherished part of my routine, and my room was now filled with art catalogs and postcards. I even began thinking about visiting art museums abroad. Reflecting on married life, I've realized that even if given the chance to do it over, I wouldn't choose marriage. I'm simply grateful for the comfortable and fulfilling life I have on my own.